Let's suppose that you were able every night to dream any dream you wanted to dream. And that you could, for example, have the power within one night to dream 75 years of time. Or any length of time you wanted to have. And you would naturally, as you began on this adventure of dreams, you would fulfill all your wishes.
Hello and welcome back. I'm Atlas and we're here around the fire for another story. Well, subset of stories actually. This will be the first long form that I actually do. For 3 stories from all Japanese origin. Now if you'll excuse me a moment, my fans are fucking loud. And I absolutely, abhorrently hate it. If it would stop being a bitch, I would be very happy. But it has a tendency to be that, so there we go. Either way. These stories are The 7 Patrons of Happiness, The Magic Kettle, and The Moon Maiden. So, we'll start with the first one. The 7 Patrons of Happiness. Every child knows who the Shichifuku-fin, or 7 Patrons of Happiness are. They have charge of long life, riches, daily food, contentment, talents, glory, and love. Their images, carved in ivory, wood, stone, or cast in bronze, are found in every house, or sold in the stores, or are painted on shop signs, or found in picture books. They are a jolly company and make a happy family. On New Year's Eve, a picture of the treasured ship, Takare Bune, laden with shippo, the 7 jewels, and all the good things of life, which men most desire, is hung up in houses. The ship is coming into port, and the passengers are the 7 happy fairies, who will make gifts to the people. These 7 jewels are the same as those which Momotaro brought back from the Oni's island. First, there is Fukuroku, I'm really bad at Japanese, I'm sorry, Jin, the patron of long life, or length of days. He was an enormously high forehead, rounded at the top, which makes his head look like a sugar loaf. That is an insult. Oh my god. I need to use that. Sorry. It is bald and shiny. A few stray white hairs are sometimes sprout out, and the barber, to reach them, has to prop a ladder against his head to climb up and apply his razor. That is just... They are just roasting him. Jesus. Sorry. This big head comes from drinking... Gonna try that again. This big head comes from thinking so much. His eyebrows are cotton white, and a long, snowy beard falls down over his breast. Once in a while, in a good humor, he ties a handkerchief over his highly slippery crown and allows his little boys to climb up on top. That is, if they are good and can write well. When he wants to show how strong and lively he is, even though so old, he lets Daikoku, the fat fellow, ride on top of his head, while he smokes his pipe and wades through a river. Daikoku has to hold on tightly, or he will slip down and get a ducking. That's a really weird way to say getting wrecked, but still. Usually the old shiny head is a very solemn gentleman, and walking slowly along with his staff in one hand, while with the others he strokes his long eyebrows. The tortoise and the crane are always with him, for those are his pets. Sometimes a stag with white hair, white with age, walks behind him. Everybody likes Fukuroku Jin because everyone wants to get his favor, and live long, until, like a lobster, their backs are bent with age. At a wedding, you always see a picture of white-bearded and shiny-padded Fukuroku Jin. Daikoku is a short, chubby fellow, with eyes half sunk and fat, but twinkling with fun. He has a flat cap set on his head like the kind which babies wear, a loose sack over his shoulders, and big boots on his feet. His throne is 2 straw bags of rice, and his badge of office is a mallet or hammer, which makes people rich when he shakes it. The hammer is the symbol of labor, showing that people may expect to get rich only by hard work. One end of it is carved to represent the jewel of the ebbing and the flowing tides, because merchants get rich by commerce on the sea, and much watch the tides. He is often seen holding an arithmetic frame on which you can count, do sums, subtract, multiply, or divide, by sliding balls up and down a row of sticks set in a frame. Instead of writing figures, beside him is a ledger and daybook. His favorite animal is the rat, which, like some rich men's pets, eats or runs away with his wealth. The great white fish radish, called daikon, 2 feet long and as big as a man's calf, is always seen near him because it signifies flourishing prosperity. He keeps his bag tightly shut, for money easily runs away when the purse is opened once. He never lets go of his hammer, for it is only by constant care that any one can keep money after he gets it. Even when he frolics with Fukuroku-jin and rides on his head, he keeps his hammer ready, swinging at his belt. He has huge lop ears. Once in a while, when he wishes to take exercise and Fukuroku-jin wants to show how frisky he can be, even if he is old, they have a wrestling match together. Daikoku nearly always beats, because Fukuroku-jin is so tall that he has to bend down to grip Daikoku, who is fat and short, and thus he becomes top-heavy. Then Daikoku gets his rival's long head under his left arm, seizing him over his back by the belt, and throwing him over his shoulder, flat on the ground. But if Fukuroku-jin can only get hold of Daikoku's lop ears, both fall together. Then they laugh heartily and try it again. Abisu is the patron of daily food, which is rice and fish, and old times was chiefly fish. He is nearly as fat as Daikoku, but wears a court noble's high cap. He is always fishing or enjoying his game. When very happy, he sits on a rock by the sea, with his right leg bent under him, and a big red fish called the tai under his left arm. He carries a straw wallet on his back to hold his fish and keep it fresh. Often he is seen standing knee-deep in the water, pole in hand, watching for a nibble. Some say that Abisu is the same scamp that goes by the other name of Susano. Or Sosano. Sorry, not Susano. Hotai is the patron of contentment, and of course is the father of happiness. He does not wear much clothing, for the truth is that all his property consists of an old, ragged wrapper, a fan, and a wallet. He is as round as a pudding, and as fat as if rolled out of dough. His body is like a lump of mochi pastry, and his limbs like dongo dumplings. He has lop ears that hang down over his shoulders, a tremendous double chin, and a round belly. Though he will not let his beard grow long, the slovenly old fellow has his own shaven, when he ought to. He is a jolly vagabond, and never fit for company, but he is a great friend of the children, who romp over his knees and shoulders, pull his ears, and climb up over his shaven head. He always keeps something good for them in his wallet. Sometimes he opens it wide and then makes them guess what is inside. They try to peep in, but are not tall enough to look over the edge. He makes tops, paints pictures, or kites for the boys, and is the children's greatest friend. When the 7 patrons meet together, Hotai is apt to drink more wine than is good for him. Toshitoku is almost the only one of the 7 who never lays aside his dignity. He is a very grave countenance. He is the patron of talents. His pet animal is a spotted fawn. He travels about a good deal to find and reward good boys who are diligent in their studies and men who are fitted to rule. In one hand he carries a crooked staff of bamboo, at the top of which is a hung book or roll of manuscripts. His dress is like that of a learned doctor, with square cap, stole, and high-toed slippers. Bishamon is the patron of glory and fame. He is a mighty soldier with a golden helmet, breastplate, and complete armor. He is a protector of priests and warriors. He gives them skill in fencing, horsemanship, and archery. He holds a pagoda in one hand and a dragon's sword in the other. His pet animal is the tiger. 6 out of this jolly 7 worthies are men. Benten is the only lady. She is the patron of the family and of the sea. She plays the flute and the guitar for the others, and amuses them at their feasts, sometimes even dancing for them. Her real home is in Ryukyu, and she is the queen of the world under the sea. She often dwells in the sea or sea caves. Caves. Her favorite animal is the snake, and her servants are the dragons. Once a year, the Jolly Seven meet together to talk over old times, relate their adventures, and have a supper together. Then they proceed to business, which is to arrange all the marriages for the coming... Oh, that was interesting. Relate their... God fucking damn it. Okay. Once a year, the Jolly Seven meet together to talk over old times, relate their adventures, and have a supper together. Then they proceed to business, which is to arrange all the marriages for the coming year. They have a great many hanks of red and white silk, which are the threads of fate of those to be married. The white threads are the men, the red are the women. At first they select the threads very carefully, and tie a great many pairs of couples, neatly and strongly together, so that the matches are perfect. All such marriages of threads make happy marriages among human beings. But by and by they get tired and lazy, and instead of tying the knots carefully, they hurry up the work, then jumble them carelessly, and finally toss and tangle all the rest in a muss. This is the reason why so many marriages are unhappy. Then they begin to frolic like big boys. Benton plays the guitar, and Bishaman lies down on the floor, resting with his elbows to hear it. Hotai drinks wine out of a shallow red cup as wide as a dinner plate. Daikoku and Fukuroku Jin begin to wrestle, and the Daikoku gets his man down. He pounds his big head with an empty gourd, while Toshitoku and Ibusu begin to eat Thai fish. When this fun is over, Benton and Fukuroku Jin play a game of checkers while the others look on and bet, except Hotai, the fat fellow who is asleep. Then they get ashamed of themselves for gambling, and after a few days the party breaks up. Each one goes to his regular business again. That was the first story. I fucked up quite a many times on that one. It's great. And now we go for the magic kettle. This one's about 7 minutes long, but the language might mess with me, so we're gonna find out. Among the mountains, an old man lived in his little house. He was very proud of it, never tired of admiring the whiteness of his straw mats, and the pretty papered walls, which in warm weather always slid back so that the smell of the trees and flowers might come in. One day he was standing looking at the mountains opposite, when he heard a kind of rumbling noise in the room behind him. He turned around, and in the corner he beheld a rusty old iron kettle, which could not have been the light of day for many years, or seen. How the kettle got there the old man did not know, but he took it up and looked it over carefully, and when he found that it was quite whole, he cleaned the dust off it and carried it into his kitchen. Excuse me. Oh. Jesus. That was a piece of luck, he said, smiling to himself. A good kettle costs money, and it is as well to have a second one at hand in case of need. Mine is getting worn out, and the water is already beginning to come through its bottom. Then he took the other kettle off the fire, filled the new one with water, and put it in its place. No sooner was the water in the kettle getting warm than a strange thing happened, and the man who was standing there, though he must be dreaming, first the handle of the kettle gradually changed its shape and became a head, and the spout grew into a tail, while out of the body sprang 4 paws, and in a few minutes the man found himself watching, not a kettle, but a tanuki. The creature jumped out the fire and bounded across the room like a kitten, running up the walls over the ceiling till the old man was in an agony lest his pretty room should be spoilt. He cried to a neighbor for help, and between them they managed to catch the tanuki. Oh, Jesus. 1 second, everybody. Sorry about that. Had some interruptions. Alright. So now we will continue. Sorry. He cried to a neighbor for help, and between them they managed to catch the tanuki and shut him up safely in a wooden chest. Then, quite exhausted, they sat down on the mats and consulted together what they should do with this troublesome beast. At length they decided to sell him, and bade a child who was passing send them a certain tradesman called Jimu. When Jimu arrived, the old man told him that he had something that he wished to get rid of, and lifted the lid of the wooden chest where he had shut up the tanuki, but, to his surprise, no tanuki was there, nothing but the kettle he had found in the corner. It was certainly very odd, but the man remembered that he had taken on the fire, and did not want to keep the kettle any more, so after a little bargaining about the price, Jimu went away carrying the kettle with him. Now Jimu had not gone very far before he felt the kettle was getting heavier and heavier. By the time he had reached home, he was so tired that he was thankful to put it down in the corner of his room, and then forgot all about it. In the middle of the night, however, he was awakened by a loud noise in the corner where the kettle stood, and raised himself up in bed to see what it was. but nothing was there except the kettle, which seemed quiet enough. He thought that must have been dreaming, and fell asleep again, only to be roused a second time by the same disturbance. He jumped up and went to the corner, and by the light of the lamp that he was always kept burning, he saw that the kettle had become a tanuki, which was running around after his tail. After he grew wary of that, he ran on to the balcony, where he turned several somersaults. From pure gladness of heart, the tradesman was much troubled as to what to do with the animal, and it was only towards morning that he managed to get any sleep. But when he opened his eyes again, there was no tanuki, only the old kettle. He had left there the night before. As soon as he had tidied his house, Jimmu set off to tell his story to a friend next door. The man listened quietly and did not appear so surprised as Jimmu expected, for he recollected having heard in his youth something about a wandering, working kettle. "Go and travel with it, and show it off," he said, "and you will become a rich man. But be careful first to ask the tanuki's leave, and also to perform some magic ceremonies to prevent him from running away at the sight of the people." Jimmu thanked his friend for his counsel, which he followed exactly. The tanuki's consent was obtained, a booth was built, and a notice was hung outside it, inviting the people to come and witness the most wonderful transformation that ever was. They came in crowds, and the kettle was passed from hand to hand, and they were allowed to examine it all over, and even to look inside. Then Jimmu took it back, and setting it on the platform, commanded it to become a tanuki. In an instant, the handle began to change into a head, and the spout into a tail, while the 4 paws appeared at the sides. "Dance," said Jimmu. The tanuki did his steps, and moved first on one side and then on the other, till the people could not stand still any longer, and began to dance too. Gracefully he led the fan dance, and glided without a pause into the shadow dance and the umbrella dance, and it seemed as if he might go on dancing forever, and so very likely he could, if Jimmu had not declared he had danced enough, and that the booth must now be closed. Day after day the booth was so full it was hardly possible to enter it, and what the neighbor foretold had come to pass, and Jimmu was a rich man, yet he did not feel happy. He was an honest man, and he thought that he had owed some of his wealth to the man from whom he had bought the kettle. So one morning he put 100 gold pieces into it, and hanging the kettle once more on his arm, he returned to the seller of it. "I have no right to keep it any longer," he added when he ended his tale, "so I brought it back to you, and inside you will find 100 gold pieces. That's the price of its hire." The man thanked Jimmu, and said that few people would have been as honest as he, and the kettle brought them both luck, and everything went well with them till they died, which they did when they were very old, respected by everyone. Very odd one, that. And now we move on to the Moon Maiden. Alrighty. Drank some more tea. Feels better. This one's about 7 minutes long as well, by the way. Should be fairly easier than others. There was an old bamboo cutter called Taketori. He was an honest old man, very poor, and hard-working, and he lived with his good old wife in a cottage on the hills. Children they had none, and little comfort in their old age, poor souls. Taketori rose early upon a summer morning, and went forth to cut bamboos, as was his wont, for he sold them for a fair price in the town, and thus he gained his humble living. Up the steep hillside he went, and came to the bamboo grove, quite wearied out. He took his blue tengui, and wiped his forehead. "Alack for my old bones," he said. "I am not so young as I once was, nor the good wife either, and there's no chick nor child to help us in our old age. More's the pity," he said as he got to work. Poor Taketori. Soon he saw a bright light shining among the green stems of the bamboos. "What is this?" said Taketori, for as a rule it was dim and shady enough in the bamboo grove. "Is it the sun?" said Taketori. "No, that cannot be well, for it comes from the ground." Very soon he pushed his way through the bamboo stems to see that the bright light came from, sure enough, it came from the root of a great big green bamboo. Taketori took his axe and cut down the great big green bamboo, and there was a fine shining green jewel the size of his 2 fists. "Wonder of wonders!" cried Taketori. "Wonder of wonders! For 35 years I've cut bamboo. This is the first time I've found a great big green jewel at the root of one of them." And with that He takes up the jewel in his hands, and as soon as he does, it bursts into two with a loud noise, if you'll believe it, and came out of it a young person and stood on Taketori's hand. You must understand that the young person was small but very beautiful. She was dressed all in green silk. Greetings to you, Taketori, she said, as easy as you please. Mercy me, says Taketori. Thank you kindly, I suppose. Now, you'll be a fairy, he says, if I'm not making too bold in asking. You're right, she says. It's a fairy I am, and I'm come to live with you and your good wife for a little. Well now, says Taketori. Begging your pardon, we're very poor. Our cottage is good enough, but I'm afraid there'd be no comforts for a lady like you. Where's the big green jewel? Says the fairy. Taketori picks up the two halves. Why, it's full of gold pieces, he says. That will do to go on with, says the fairy. And now, Taketori, let us make for home. Home they went. Wife, wife, cries Taketori. There's a fairy come to live with us, and she has brought us a shining jewel as a big persimmon full of gold pieces. The good wife came running to the door. She could hardly believe her eyes. What is this? She said. But a persimmon in gold pieces? Persimmons I have seen often enough. Moreover, it is the season, but gold pieces are hardly to come by. Let be, woman, said Taketori. You are dull. And he brought the fairy into the house. Wondrous fast the fairy grew. Before many days were gone, she was a fine tall maiden, as fresh and as fair as the morning, as bright as the moon day, as sweet and still as the evening. And as deep as the night, Taketori called her the Lady Beaming Bright, because she had come out of the shining jewel. Taketori had the gold pieces out of the jewel every day. He grew rich and spent his money like a man, but there was always plenty and to spare. He built him a fine house. He had servants to wait on him. The Lady Beaming Bright was lodged like an empress. Her beauty was both famed near and far, and scores of lovers came to seek her hand. But she would have none of them. Taketori and the dear good old wife are my true lovers, she said. I will live with them and be their daughter. So 3 happy years went by, and in the 3rd year the Mikado himself came to woo the Lady Beaming Bright. He was the brave lover indeed. Lady, he said, I bow before you, my soul salutes you. Sweet lady, be my queen. Then the Lady Beaming Bright sighed, and great tears stood in her eyes, and she hid her face with her sleeve. Lord, I cannot, she said. Cannot, said the Mikado. And why not, O dear Lady Beaming Bright? Wait and see, Lord, she said. Now the 7th month she grew very sorrowful, and would go aboard no more, but was for long upon the garden gallery of Taketori's house. When she sat in the daytime and brooded, there she sat at night and gazed upon the moon and the stars. There she was one fine night when the moon was at its full. Her maids were with her, and Taketori and the good wife, and the Mikado, her brave lover. How bright the moon shines, said Taketori. Truly, said the good wife, it is like a brass saucepan well scored. See how pale and wan it is, said the Mikado. It is like a sad, despairing lover. How long and bright a beam, quoth Taketori. It is like a highway from the moon searching to its garden gallery. Oh, dear foster father, cried the Lady Beaming Bright. You speak truth, it is a highway indeed, and along the highway came countless heavenly beings swiftly to bear me home. My father is the king of the moon. I disobeyed his behest. He sent me to earth 3 years to dwell in exile. The 3 years are past, and I go to my own country. Ah, I am sad at the parting. The mist descends, said Taketori. Nay, said the Mikado, it is the cohorts of the king of the moon. Down they came in their hundreds and their thousands, bearing torches. Silently they came, lighted about the garden gallery. The chief among them brought a heavenly feathered robe. Upon rose the Lady Beaming Bright, and upon the robe upon her. Farewell, Taketori, she said. Farewell, dear foster mother. I leave you my jewel for a remembrance. As for you, my lord, I would you might come with me. But there is no feather robe for you. I leave you a phial of the pure elixir of life. Drink, my lord, and be even as the immortals. Then, as she spread her bright wings, and the cohorts of heaven closed around her, together they passed up to the highway of the moon, and there were no more seen. The Mikado took the elixir of life in his hands, and he went to the top of the highest mountain in that country. He made a great fire to consume the elixir of life. For he said, "Of what profit shall it be to me to live forever, being parted from the lady beaming bright?" So the elixir of life was consumed, and its blue vapors floated up to heaven. And the Mikado said, "Let my message float up with the vapors, and reach the ears of my lady beaming bright." That's a nice story. But fair. Alrighty, well. That was a lot nicer than it seems. Bit long, but still fairly nice. Have fun.